The Lakers 2020 championship has stirred up a lot of debate over Lakers titles. Which one should count toward their franchise total, right? Because both the Celtics and the Lakers now officially have 17 championships apiece. These teams have met in the finals a record 12 times. There are people who live on the, eastern Massachusetts side of the country who believe that LA should only have claim to the last 12 titles, and here is why. The Minneapolis Lakers were the first actual dynasty in pro basketball. They won 5 out of 6 from 1949 to 1954, led by the great George Mikan, who was named to the NBA's top 50 players list. Now, in 1960 is when the franchise moved to Los Angeles. And many feel ignored their early history for years. In fact, the Lakers themselves officially recognized the 5 Minneapolis titles with a banner only in 2002. That's how long it took. The Lakers wore throwback jerseys and handed out ceremonial rings to Hall of Fame members of the Minneapolis Lakers. By the way, the Lakers still have not retired George Mikan's '99 jersey. So the argument from people in, Boston, Jackie, is that if they didn't even think they counted, how are the Lakers now saying they counted? And other franchises that have moved, like the Thunder, don't exactly celebrate what was won in past cities. So do you think we should really count, Jackie, all 17 Lakers titles?
I do, and I have a simple solution for you. Retire George Mikan's number in the rafters of the Staples Center and then bring him into the fold. He belongs there anyway. My goodness, there's a drill named after him. I had to do it 400 times. You know what I'm talking about, Perk? The Mikan drill. So that I think it gets too complicated right. If you're going to start talking about when teams move and just subtracting those. I'm not in favor of that. I do live in New England on the East Coast. But I'm not putting a stamp on it. The Lakers have 17 titles. The Celtics have 17 titles. That's the way it is. Deal with it, Boston fans. Sorry.
Well, Rachel, Jackie, what else did y'all expect from the Boston fans? You know these fans wasn't going to be pleased with that. That's one thing that they could hold over the NBA, especially their rivalry, the Lakers, is that we have 17, y'all have 16, and now it's even. Of course, they was going to bring that up, but I'm with you, Jackie. Look, the Lakers have 17. We're not going to start that because if that's the case, we could go back into the Boston days where it went from the ABA to the NBA, and some people could raise question marks about that, and we're not going to do that. Look, championships are championships. They're hanging up in the rafters for a reason. So I'm sorry, Boston fans. It is tied up 17-17. Win another one, and you could break the tie.
So you guys are both letting our Boston area, Boston native producer Andy, you're letting him down. But I do agree with both of you. You can't start messing around with this. And I will say this. There's all different kinds of conditions that you win a title under, Perk. You're absolutely right. It's a championship the year you win it, right? You are competing with other teams playing under the same conditions. You're not competing with teams playing 30 years in the future. So the year you won it against the teams you played, you won it. That's a title. You earn and you keep the title. But while we're on the topic of Celtics-Lakers, there's another thing that fans have been fighting over. Rajon Rondo. He became the first player to win a championship with both teams in this era, and we're not necessarily lumping in Clyde Lovellette because he's the only other guy to do it, and he did it with Boston and Minneapolis. But regardless, playoff Rondo was back. So, Perk, really fascinating to look at Celtics Rondo, who was the young gun on a team with vets, and Lakers Rondo, who was the vet on a team with mostly a lot of younger players. Who do you prefer? Celtics Rondo or Lakers Rondo? Who's more impressive to you professionally? I know personally you're Celtics Rondo all the way.
Well, look, first of all, I hope that I don't lose any love from my Boston fan base and my Boston family. But I have to go with this year's championship with the Lakers, and here's why. Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and KG was the big three. Rondo and myself just happened to be the other two. That's what we called ourselves. But when you look at this Laker championship, Rondo was actually part of the big three. He was what the Lakers wanted Kuzma to be. Rondo was the third best player, in my opinion, on the Lakers team. And the Lakers wouldn't have won a championship without Rondo. And the best thing happened to the Lakers, besides obviously LeBron James and Anthony Davis, is that Rondo returned to the bubble and was ready to play second round, third round and then the finals to help them win their 17th championship. So sorry, Boston fans, I got to roll with Lakers Rondo for us with the impact that he had on them winning the championship.
All right, Perk, I got news for you. They're going to be egging our Maseratis and our Benzes and all those other cars we just bought on the last segment because I'm going to agree with you. And, you know, I had a front row seat to watch the 2008 Boston Celtics. I watched the clutch play that a young Rondo, many plays in that series. But here's the thing about this Rondo. Think about it, guys. This is the, oh my gosh, I might be out of the league Rondo. This is a guy who told me in a story I did with him recently that before every round they played, he would look at the opponent's film and he would find the player that was most akin to his own skill set and fastidiously study every clip of that film so he would know ahead of time how they were going to play him. He also told me, I want to be the best role player in the bubble. I think we would get convinced, hands down, slam dunk, that he wins that title. Also, the way he handled these young players, and when LeBron or somebody else got tough with him, he's the guy that took him to dinner. He's the guy that put his arm around him. He's the guy that told Kuzma, we're not giving up on you. All of those reasons, the grown-up Rondo, it's so impressive. It doesn't mean we don't love 2008 Rondo. Of course we do. He was so spunky. But this Rondo is a vet who's seen it all. And then I agree with you. Without him, the Lakers do not win the 17th championship.
Absolutely not. It is fascinating talking to him at this point in his career, too, because we all knew him back then. He was young, right? Now he's talking about how he not only maybe wants to be a coach, because as you know, Jackie, he is so great at film and recall and all of that stuff. Yeah. He said that he might want to be a GM. He said he's really gotten into team construction.
I think he'd be a great GM.
And that he thinks that he would be great in the front office, too. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.